Well, it's that time again to record another edition of Bedlam Buds. My name is Ryan, Boomer Sooner after a Texas loss, and this is my buddy Jeremy.
Go Pokes. Always bleed orange.
After an Oklahoma State loss.
Win, lose, or draw.
Between the two of our teams, we scored 23 points, and most of it came from the Cowboys. But before we talk about the Cowboys, there was some breaking news. We're recording on Sunday afternoon. James Franklin from Penn State fired this afternoon with a $49 million buyout, despite having a pretty decent record. And I'm not going to be able to pull it up here because I closed that tab. But his first couple of years, 2014, 2015, he went 7-6. And then there was a string of 11-2, 11-3. During the pandemic year, he went 4-5. I don't think anybody can really count that. Went 7-6, and then all of a sudden, a string of 11-2, 11-3, and then last year, 13-3. He won 2 playoff games, lost in the national semifinal. But this year, an admirable loss in overtime at home to Oregon, and then they just crapped the bed. They went to UCLA and not only lost to a bad UCLA team, they lost to a historically bad UCLA team. And then they lost at home to Northwestern. So do you have any I have some thoughts as to what might have happened there, but what's your reaction to the firing of James Franklin?
I'm not surprised. Schools are moving. Schools are making those moves. Look at what Oklahoma State did this year. So you know that there was Penn State donors who either made phone calls or ponied up because, that's a lot of money and they don't have that on hand. So, there were some big money people behind that move, and I'm not surprised. The reason I'm not surprised is while overall he has had a really good record, a record that a lot of schools would really, really like to have, he couldn't get over the big hurdle. He couldn't win that one game a year, those 2 games of year that really mattered, that really, the Ohio States or the Michigans or the playoff semifinal. He could never get that big hurdle, and Penn State's wanting to get over that big hurdle, and so apparently they're willing to pay to make that happen. But I'm not surprised.
Right. They are the beast in the East. I mean, you have Ohio State and Penn State, and that's as good as it gets going east because the dominance is in the South and in the Southern Plains, except for the fact that the Big Ten has actually been pretty good for the past couple of years. But Penn State has the opportunity to be the Texas of that entire region. And you're absolutely right. James Franklin had a dismal record, worst in the nation in terms of going up against AP top 10 teams. And so for somebody of that stature, Penn State, they just must have had the realization, somebody there had the realization that this was as good as it gets. And if this is as good as it gets, why are we continuing with this? I mean, I had posited to you before we started recording that maybe perhaps he wasn't that well liked in the athletic department. It's easy to get rid of somebody you don't like. There's no evidence of that one way or the other. There's also been reports on Twitter, X, that Adidas may have been involved. I don't know. They actually came from a reporter.
I mean, that would, again, there's no way to know for sure, but that would make sense at that large of a buyout, that there had to be, again, some major donors, plural, or again, maybe the Adidas brand themselves was like, okay, enough's enough. And, I still think that if they had beaten Northwestern, that he would have had his job for another week, that they weren't going to make any moves. But because he let that Oregon loss lose the next 2 as well, I mean, they were still hung over from losing to Oregon as they lost to Oregon. And, that type of program's not, they were probably looking for a reason because he can't get over that hump. But that 3rd loss in a row, they're like, well, if he can't get them out of this hole and with this squad, get them turned back around, it's never going to happen. So they made that move.
You don't want one loss to become 2, to become 3, and that goes for my alma mater, the Oklahoma Sooners. The difference between the Penn State-Oregon game and Oklahoma-Texas is that Penn State looked actually pretty good against Oregon at home against the Ducks. The Sooners looked dreadful. They were okay on defense, and I should note, I checked both the box scores. Oklahoma held Texas to fewer yards than Ohio State did. But Oklahoma also gave up 16 points. Ohio State only gave up 7. The problem with the Sooners is they have no offensive identity. it seems to have there seems to be a lack of offensive strategy. And the one thing that fans asked of Brent Venables last year was pick an OC, pick a quarterback. Jeremy, in a previous edition of Bedlam Buds, I do believe you heard me say I don't get what the big deal about Ben Arbuckle is. He's trash. He's not that good. There's nothing creative. Oh my God. It is backyard ball. It's John Mateer, get the ball, roll out to the right, and look for somebody. You and I used to do that at the top of 9th Street Hill in Henrietta. There's no strategy. The running game is terrible. It really is one of the most vanilla offenses I've seen at OU since 1994, the 6th year of Gary Gibbs.
Okay, but what's happened? When we first started this, you mentioned him as a possible head coaching candidate for Oklahoma State. So were you just trying to get rid of him and dumping him up on us up here?
I've never actually been serious about him being a head coach anywhere. He's been mentioned by a lot of people.
Okay.
I think if Oklahoma State went the Ben Arbuckle round, that would be insanity. I mean, I don't think that Oklahoma State's going to get Kurt Cignetti, and nor do I think that they need to get somebody who's within the Polk family. But they got to get somebody who's a visionary. This guy at Texas Tech, who was a coordinator at Baylor, and you've got Eric Morris at North Texas. These guys who are up and coming, who started at places like Incarnate Word and Texas State, G.J. Kinney. These guys are the folks that I would be looking at for the future. But Brent Venables has a $36.3 million buyout. I almost said billion. That would be a little bit much. That'd be like,
that'd be a record.
Yeah, that would be a record. One day we'll get there. But but it's just concerning that the one thing that was asked of Venables, get an offensive identity to match the ferocity of the defense, hasn't happened. And Texas was not the first evidence of this. The offensive game plan against Michigan was all right. The Sooners won. Little did we know that Michigan actually wasn't that potent one way or the other. They lost 31-13 yesterday in Los Angeles to Southern Cal. And then Auburn. Auburn's offense is terrible. Now, mind you, Auburn, they've had their gripes against Oklahoma. They had even more gripes against Georgia yesterday, losing 20-10.
Oh, my goodness. That was brutal.
I mean, I feel bad. Yeah, I actually feel bad for Auburn. I feel bad for, I wasn't a fan of the trick play. That was just sus. There's just something about Arbuckle that does not sit right with me, one way or the other, both strategically and just as a dude.
Well, I like it again. A couple of the dudes that you mentioned, not Arbuckle, but a couple of the other dudes you mentioned, the Morris from North Texas, man. Once his name is kind of thrown out there, and you mentioned him a couple of weeks ago, I've started to look into that a little bit, and my goodness, what he's been able to do with quarterbacks. I mean, Cam Ward, just for example, but what he's been able to do with quarterbacks, and clearly Oklahoma State's had some issue at that particular position, and with him clearly having some Texas ties and some recruiting ties, I kind of hope. And there's a committee that's supposed to be helping start this process, and I don't have any knowledge of what's happened on that. I'm just throwing out this name here, that we've mentioned before, but I'm really intrigued by him. The Texas Tech guy, I'm not sure why he would jump ship right now with how Texas Tech is going compared to how Oklahoma State is going. And they're probably paying what we could pay at Oklahoma State because of the influx of all the oil money that they had. But yeah, the Morris guy from North Texas, I mean, he's had a really great track record. He has head coaching experience. He has won everywhere he's been. He has had successful quarterbacks. Man, that checks a lot of boxes for me.
He was also the coordinator for Patrick Mahomes at Texas Tech.
I forgot about that. That's right. Yeah.
So that's the type of guy I'm going after. But I'm quite aware of what Arbuckle and Mateer did at Washington State last year. But I also know that Washington State is not Oklahoma. A lot of folks said that fans said that maybe Mateer was still hurt. Mateer said after the game, "My hand's fine. I just wasn't ready." And I'm going to take you at your word. But if you're going to get paid the money that you're getting paid, that can't happen. And even worse than Mateer was Jaden Ott. This guy comes from Cal, steals whatever money he gets from Oklahoma. I don't know if you saw that play where he just olayed on the block. Oh my God. Schools have to have recourse to just cut guys and get the money back. That's going to have to be a thing. Like you cannot, if you show you're not willing to play ball, you got to be able to get the money back.
Well, you can't do that with like pro contracts. Deshaun Watson, for example, with the Browns. And so, unless there is cause, you got to have that just cause. So what you just do is at the end of the season, you can suggest that he move on. In this new day of NCAA with the portal, the coaches have as much right, my understanding anyway, the coaches have as much right to say, you're not going to be on this team as the players do. And so at that point, that's when you have whatever recourse it is. But unfortunately, unless that's written into the NIL contract, you're not getting that money back.
Well, and another thing these contracts are going to evolve over time. We have not seen our first lawsuit between a school and a quarterback. It's going to happen.
There was a quarterback last year, I think, who just stopped playing after like 3 games because he wasn't getting paid.
Right. And it didn't work out for him because he wasn't paid good. You're going to have to be good. In fact, if I remember right, I don't forget if it was Brennan Marion, whoever took over that program actually did better with the next quarterback who came along, and now it's Dan Mullen who's there.
There's a lot of examples of guys ending up in not as good situations as what they left.
Right. It's good.
And then you have your Cam Wards or your guys like that, right, who absolutely. But the problem is we just focus on those. You don't focus on the 1,000 who don't have another spot or who don't get NIL or those type of things. So it's a mixed bag. You got to bet on yourself, but I don't know.
There is a tendency from Oklahoma fans to it's sort of a dichotomy. On one hand, they want to be loyal. Brett knows what he's doing. We'll stick with the team. They know better than we do. And on the other hand, after a loss like 23-6 to Texas, in which they looked really dreadful, fire them all. I think the answer is somewhere in between. I do think that we have to be honest with ourselves in terms of Brent Venables long term. I think the Sooners will be okay at South Carolina this week. They're actually struggling. Shane Beamer just fired his offensive line coach. That should be a wake-up call. What's kind of funny is somebody mentioned there had been calls to get rid of Bill Biedenbaugh, and somebody said, what a crazy thing. He puts more guys in the NFL than any other line coach in America. And I'm like, then why are his lines so terrible on Saturdays?
I kind of call it the Texas effect almost, and it just translates, otherwise. How many times have Texas put guys in the NFL, but their college career was really not very good, or that team was not very good? And so you have that type of situation where maybe he can work with 1 or 2 guys, and so on average, he's putting more into the pros, but overall as a unit, it's just not good. Does that make sense?
Again, it makes sense. Then again, you've got a guy like Curt Cignetti, went to James Madison, all of a sudden national power. Went to Indiana, they're the number 3 team in the nation, and they ain't a fluke. And it's not that OU is going to be able to get him. I don't think that. Why would he come to Oklahoma? First off, nobody's getting rid of anybody at Oklahoma until there's a new AD. Joe C., once he announced his departure, he doesn't get to make any more decisions. The next guy. Yeah, he's a lame duck. And of course, I've been kind of pulling for the I forget his name, the guy at Texas Tech, who has roots at Oklahoma. He actually served under Joe C. Back in the day, back in the real glory days of the early 2000s, and has done a masterful job at Texas Tech. But we'll see who we get. But whoever that person is going to get to pick whoever their head coach is. And I just don't think that Venables is long for this world. You just hope that he survives a season and turns it around. The Sooners still have a shot at a playoff, but all of a sudden the wins that were expected aren't so sure. Are these Sooners going to beat LSU? Are they going to beat Alabama? I think they have a shot definitely against South Carolina and definitely against Mississippi. Missouri's a toss-up.
Is it Mississippi or Mississippi State?
Mississippi. If it were Mississippi
Okay.
State, yeah, I'd be like, we're good.
Oh yeah, but Ole Miss, that'll be a tussle. See, that's the problem that OU is going to run into is the fact that have a very tough SEC schedule this year, and the SEC did OU no favors, and then I think Texas maybe got a little bit of a lighter sentence on that, but that's it. Is how quickly can OU recover? It's what we talked about earlier. Don't let one loss turn into two or three, and so. South Carolina will look at OU now as, hey, we can handle these guys. We can play with these guys.
And their backs are against the wall. They are 3-3, and Shane Beamer is a darn good coach. He has overachieved in Columbia, South Carolina so far. Of course, he's walking in the footsteps of his great father, Frank Beamer, who coached at Virginia Tech. And it's an 11:45 a.m. start Central Time next week. The things that the Sooners are going to have to focus on, getting a running game identity. I know a lot of Sooner fans, as much as they love DeMarco Murray as a player. By the way, DeMarco was a better pro than he was a college player. DeMarco had a 1 year where he was darn near MVP of the league when he played with the Cowboys. But DeMarco has been his running back room and his running back strategy has been dismal. Somebody pointed out online somewhere that why is it that it's always the freshmen on the team who do the best in his running back room? Because the minute that he and his staff actually start working with the guys, downhill, man. The offensive line doesn't help either, but you got to have a running game. You got to have a running game to have an offense that will stay on the field. You got to have a running game to support John Mateer and what he wants to do. And it's just non-existent. Torrey Blaylock has been a shining point, but boy, he is just like Air Supply sang, he is making love out of nothing at all.
Well, you know that there is a phenomenon where former great players struggle coaching that particular position, okay? And because they were so good at it and worked so hard at it and were so natural at it, they don't understand those who don't operate that way. And so DeMarco might be falling into a little bit of that. I mean, honestly, I've had OSU fans argue that quarterback was the position that Mike Gundy struggled with the most, and that if he had settled the quarterback, he maybe would still have the job. And he was a terrific quarterback. And again, that's what people have said. And maybe DeMarco was falling kind of into that same trap. Again, it's a little bit different situation, but like Isaiah Thomas, great basketball player, one of the worst coaches ever.
One of the worst coaches, one of the worst GMs, one of the worst, and by the way, also not liked by anybody who worked with him.
And that's why he didn't last in places for very long, because he didn't have that going for him. But so sometimes, you can have that happen. So, I mean, maybe DeMarco's fallen into that. But overall, I think OU they have a lot of potential to win.
They have, but they still don't have that offensive identity. And as much as folks said, well, why don't you give Texas some credit? I've got eyes. Texas wasn't that great. They were good enough to win 23-6 over a team that played awful. But they're not bad. But Arch was okay. He was fine. He was better than Mateer. But there was nothing about this team that made me say, oh, the Horns are back. Ooh, they got swagger. Yeah, it was.
Arch had one run, and everybody's losing their minds over it because he
the one where he slid. Yeah. He ran far, slid, got up, and started waving bye to people. Fantastic, man. That's like something I would have done in high school when we played on academic ball. I get one question right, and I'm pumping my fist. It's just like, whatever, man. But they clearly were the better team on Saturday, no doubt about it. I think if Oklahoma underestimated anything, it was probably their defensive rush and their ability to disrupt anything that Oklahoma wanted to do. But again, for that crowd who says, well, Ben Arbuckle just wasn't showing his bag of tricks yet. Jeremy, I said it last week, that's not a thing. A good offensive coordinator from day one is showing his cards. He is calling his plays. He's not holding stuff back. It's just it's just not a thing. Stop saying that.
Well, and even if he was, it didn't work. I mean, because
if that was his bag of tricks,
Right. If that's your excuse, come up with a better one. Unfortunately, you're right, man. Texas D line dominated, and Mateer was running for his life a lot. And he had what, 3 interceptions, I think it was, a couple of unlucky bounces, but
Yeah,
he's putting the ball in dangerous positions.
could have been four, and it was like almost four. And a lot of bad decisions. Bad decisions. He was rushed. He's not as good a thrower as we've had in Baker and Kyler and Jalen and Dylan.
But those are Heisman Trophy winners. You can't put everybody on that level.
He's not as good a thrower as Landry Jones. He's not as good a thrower as Nate Hibble. He's damn sure not as good a thrower as Jason White. He's not as good a thrower as Josh Heupel. Josh Heupel wasn't that good a thrower. Josh Heupel had an awkward sort of a weird left-handed. Yeah, he got it done, but it's just.
Damn.
In fact, I was texting with my brothers yesterday. I'm like, if I'm actually putting Mateer on the ranked scale, somebody said, in terms of how they played in OU Texas, it's the worst that any quarterback has ever performed. And somebody said, well, what about Davis Bevel? I'm like, well, that dude played because of a bunch of injuries. That wasn't his fault. And they got smoked 49-0. I put it up there with Rhett Bomar. It's Rhett Bomar or Paul Thompson. And Paul Thompson's a great dude. Paul Thompson came in and rescued the Sooners the year that Bomar got in trouble. And we almost won that Fiesta Bowl against Boise State. It's as bad a quarterbacking job as I've ever seen from a Sooners quarterback. It was that bad, and I've watched since '76.
I think that there might be a little bit of emotion there because, I mean, you saw the John Blake years.
Okay, but I know those years back and forth. We lost 34-3 in '97. We won in 1996. Justin Fuente and Eric Moore. The thing about Eric Moore, and I've always said this, Eric Moore gave a shit. And not Mateer does also, but Eric Moore really, really, really cared. And he did his best in situations where he had nobody around him. I remember the 91-yard TD run he had against Baylor to save us from getting a loss against the Bears at home. I'm just like, I've always been an admirer of that guy. And then in 1998, I forgot what the loss was there, but I believe that OU scored double-digit points that year. There was one year where the Sooners lost 34-3, and the last year was sort of de facto. We knew Blake was gone. But I thought about that. Even in the Blake years, the Sooners had, except for that 34-3 year, which I'm sure was an Eric Moore year. But it just in terms of a QB, I mean, the whole team was bad, and the whole team was bad yesterday. Mateer, though, Jeremy, was especially bad.
Okay, I mean, I watched the game, and I'm not going to argue with you as far as that goes. I'm just giggling at the historical nature of the badness that you're placing on this.
And so I think about the '80s. I mean, we had Cale Gundy. Cale Gundy won a game down there, but we had Patrick Collins. We had Kelly Phelps. Those were some weird years. If you remember those, you had Troy Aikman. You had Jamel Holloway. He's pretty good.
Jamel Holloway.
Yeah. You had not Steve Owens, but Steve Davis, Dean the Dream, Dean Blevins. You had Thomas Lott. Oklahoma's had a lot of good quarterbacks who didn't win Heismans, and a lot of them who stepped up in the Texas game. And I will tell you, for whatever night. Blake Bell is a gamer, man. In fact, had that heroic game in Stillwater in 2013. But
I was there.
For as bad as 97 and 98 were maybe against Texas, 96 overrides it. Man, that was a miraculous game, and Justin Fuente and you deserves a ton of credit for that. Anyway, enough about the Sooners. It just kind of is what it is. Josh Jacobs just scored a touchdown. Fantasy football, man. Your fantasy team doing good?
No.
All right, we'll move on.
Hope you guys think house today. Luckily, we don't gamble, so it's just these are just gonna have bragging rights, and he's already been talking smack all weekend. And
oh my goodness. Well, the last thing I'll say about the Sooners, I think they have a shot to win against South Carolina this week, and it's all about how you bounce back. There's nothing about that loss and what we saw, though, that makes me convinced that the Sooners will bounce back, but I am not unconvinced. They could. We'll
No, that's
see what,
fair. That's fair.
because I will tell you, if all of a sudden you start to see guys, where's Javonte Barnes been the past couple of weeks? Is this quiet quitting? What are we doing here? What's the situation here? But all of a sudden you start to see guys saying, I'm good. I don't need to play anymore this year. Then that's a problem. So we'll see how they do. Give them a chance. But if for some reason the Sooners were to lose the rest of their games and go 5-7, I don't think that'll happen. But 6-6, 7-5, that's real possible with this schedule.
It is. Yeah,
absolutely
it is. It's
that's
tough schedule.
That's going to be a problem.
Tough schedule.
All right, Cowboys, they're 1-5 now, and not a ton of evidence that they're going to win another game. Now, mind you, UCLA also, you put Jerry Neuheisel in place as OC, and all of a sudden, they've won 2 games in a row. Scored 42 points a couple of weeks ago, scored 38 against Michigan State in Lansing. And so we're looking for that kind of turnaround in Stillwater. It did not happen this week with the quarterback that they rolled out there. What was his name? Sam?
Yeah, Sam Jackson the fifth.
Great name.
He was terrific.
Yeah,
absolutely. And he is a wide receiver. We recruited him as a wide receiver. He's played quarterback, high school and early college, but he's supposed to be a receiver, and he was willing to do that for the team. He could have said, "No, coach, I'm a receiver. That's how I might make my pro situation better, and so I want to stay as a receiver." But for the sake of the team, he was willing to switch over and play quarterback while all our other quarterbacks are hurt. And so, I just appreciate the fact that kid stepped it up and was willing to do that, put team first, play for the name on the front of the jersey, and they'll remember the name on the back. And, even though it was not the best performance in the world, overall, the offense scored a couple of touchdowns. I mean, and let's be honest, the best part about the whole game was section 231 with all the shirtless wonders up there. I mean, they were ESPN's fan of the week,
How did that start? What was that?
It was naturally. It was third quarter. There were several upper sections completely vacated, right? Completely vacated. That's the side the sun was hitting, so it was hot, and the field performance wasn't what wanted, and so right above the student section, right? So one dude went up there, took his shirt off, and started just waving it. And then another dude almost immediately kind of followed him up there, and it was just 2 dudes. And then I was watching that as much as what was happening on the field, because the action was on the other side of the field from where I was standing. And so then you see 3 or 4 guys start flowing over there, and they're running up, and you can see them kind of pause, and they ask. Honestly, it looks like they ask, "Hey, can we come up?" And those guys are, "Yeah, come on." And then once 3 or 4 other dudes took their shirts off, and they're all waving them, and they're all going, "Hoo, hoo, hoo." And then before too long, there were literally hundreds of guys running that direction, of all ages, shapes, sizes, colors, everything. I mean, there's one dude who looked like Santa Claus right in the front. He got some airtime, I believe. And I mean, the coach yesterday in the media, or maybe today, or no, it was immediately after the game. He said, "I want to thank those guys." Was that a fraternity? Who went up and did that? I mean, of course, that blew up nationally, and that was the story. And OSU has played along with it. They put up on the Jumbotron probably a world's record for the most shirtless dudes in a section. I mean, it was just fantastic. You got to have fun in dire situations.
But it's something I've always appreciated about Stillwater and Oklahoma State, win or lose. It's not that the fans don't take it seriously. They do. It's going to be a good time, though.
Oh yeah, it's always a good time. Win, lose, or draw, we're going to have a good time in Stillwater.
Yeah. So the game itself, Oklahoma State got out to a lead early. It was looking okay. The wheels fell off again. So was it mostly a defensive thing?
No. What happens with Oklahoma State offense right now, it's an unfortunate thing, is if they're driving and have no mistakes, they will score. One mistake, drive is over. One hold, one false start, one dropped pass, any of that, one negative pass, drive's over. They can't seem to recover from one single mistake along the way. And that's a problem. That's inexperience. that's youth, but that's a problem. You have to be able to fix that. Now, again, though, we were throwing who was essentially our fourth string quarterback, out there playing, actually, again, a wide receiver. And so, the Cowboys were shorthanded to begin with. However, this is D1 football, and there are no real excuses. You got to strap it up and play with who you have, and do what you can. This past week, quite a few guys, I think 8 to 10 more jumped into the portal. So starting to lose more players that way. I think we're probably at a pretty good break-even point where I think things will settle this week. But, it's one of those things where, unfortunately, I've been through some bad times in Stillwater, but right now, unfortunately, we're there.
So I should point out to people listening to this who might think that I'm especially a little rough on the Sooners, but even what I'm about to say about those guys who jump in the portal, they have the right to. This is a business now. These cats are getting paid. It's a business now. This is not the same as it was 10 years ago. You can boohoo me all to get to death, but John Mateer's a millionaire. And if Oklahoma State will eventually have a quarterback who's a millionaire also, this just is what it is. And they cannot be immune to the type of criticism the professional players get. They're still kids in a lot of ways, but those guys who left the Oklahoma State team, that was their choice. That was a choice. And now guys like Sam Jackson, the fifth, a great name again. You know who he reminds me of? Just his willingness to do this. Brandon Daniels, Oklahoma, 1998. He was actually a quarterback in high school at Ada, and then John Blake had converted him to wide receiver. And for those of you Sooner fans who don't remember Brandon Daniels, he had that punt return against Notre Dame that was really the first signal to me that Oklahoma was back, because it was competent football, and it was a big play. But his willingness to do that, it's the same thing that I always loved about Blake Bell. Blake Bell, oh, you need me to be a backup now with Trevor Knight in here? Whatever. I'm not going to pout. I'm going to be ready to play. And then against Oklahoma State, he was ready to play. He just always, you want me to run a trick play?
He was playing tight end.
Right. Well, he ended up a tight end in the pros, but he was a quarterback out of Wichita. And he was.
No, I know he was a quarterback, but he played some time. I'm pretty sure he played some tight end at OU.
I don't know about OU. He definitely did with the Chiefs and the Vikings, and of course he won a Super Bowl with the Chiefs. But he was the original tush push.
I think he's still playing pro. Isn't he still on the roster?
I think this is his first year out of pros.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think he got eligible for the pension, and he's done. I don't know if he'll go back. Good for him. I think it's like $250,000 a year. It's good enough.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and not to mention the millions he's hopefully made over the time. But anyway,
he's a guy who I've admired probably more than any OU quarterback. Baker's my guy, but Blake, he's the guy who is just an unheralded hero of OU football for many years. But with that said, the original tush push, you remember the bulldozer? That's just the tush push. That's
Belldozer.
The Belldozer. But anyway, it's good on Sam Jackson, because it's guys like that. Whoever the next guy, the coach who comes in, you need a bunch of Sam Jackson the fifths. You need good dudes on the team. And you're going to be looking at those guys. Those guys are going to wear the C on their chest. They're going to be the captains. They're going to be going out, flipping the coin at the beginning of the game. And because I remember when Bob Stoops came in, we can knock Blake all we want, but he was a good recruiter, and a lot of those guys were the foundation for that 2000 team.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
there were a lot of Blake guys. Matter of fact, I would say the important player, and clearly it would be Heupel, brought in by Stoops, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, man, Blake did a great job of recruiting.
Yeah, I think Roy Williams was a Blake guy. I think he may have been a freshman, but a lot of those dudes. So
Roy was okay.
Roy was okay. Yeah. Superman,
my goodness.
Yeah, I'm not expecting these guys to be like Roy Williams. I'm not expecting them to be like Baker, Kyler, or Jalen. I'm expecting just some. You never want to say there was no heart, but that second half of that game, it was vapid. There was nothing going on, man.
Well, I I understand. I understand what you're saying. I don't think they quit. I don't think they gave up. And I know that's not what you're saying. I know that's not what you're saying.
They're just saying
But
there's no strategy. They were all guessing.
kind of inept out there.
Yeah, it was really inept.
Okay.
Um,
Fair.
who's Oklahoma State got next?
Cincinnati, 5-1 Cincinnati. We can't buy a break. It's a 7 o'clock p.m. Kickoff. It's homecoming, so it's prime time. We're gonna get to play a 5-1 team
In Cincinnati?
No, homecoming. So it's still
Okay. Okay. All right. Hey, homecoming is still always fun.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
again, we will have a good time.
So, what? Anything particularly special this year at homecoming?
I think the theme is survive the year. No, I don't. It's
The theme is how many Coors Lights can we get down?
That's exactly right. That's how many how long can you stay sober throughout the day or something before the 7 o'clock kickoff? I don't know.
It's 7 o'clock. But you never know. UCLA did it. Sometimes those night games can be a little weird. And who knows? The thing about there's no pressure on Meacham. He's not going to be the guy. Why not let it fly? Have it on his.
And they've done that. I mean, the very first touchdown against Cincinnati was a double pass.
Well, all right, against Houston. But keep doing it. Keep trying different things. Maybe if you put it all together, you end up with a win that all of a sudden gets you some national acclaim.
Right. Well, and I'm honestly, as weird as this sounds, one of the things I really, really hope happens is I hope a whole bunch of dudes show up and fly up to that section with their shirts off from the beginning and make that a thing while the stadium is going to be half empty. I really hope that, because with that kind of buy-in, it actually can salvage the season, because at least you have something good coming out of it, and you can even spin that toward recruits. Look at the fan support we have, even when we're horrible. Imagine when we start winning again.
Marketing idea, skins only. You want to come up here, you got to lose the shirt.
I need to print those T-shirts and start selling those mugs. Am I kidding?
Yeah,
that's terrific.
That would never happen in Norman. But it's so fun, man.
It's terrific. No, I'm with you though. Back to the game. Let it fly. Why not? We got nothing to lose. No one expects us to win. OSU is going to be double-digit dogs the rest of the year. And we have some. Gosh, again, looking down the road, I don't see a win. But I'm with you. Anything can happen. I've seen worse Oklahoma State teams beat really good teams, occasionally in Norman, but right. And definitely down in Austin, had terrific success down in Austin. So I could see this Oklahoma State team jumping up and biting somebody, because people are probably going to start overlooking us, and that can play into our favor. And we got nothing to lose. Why not let it fly?
Is there anything new on the coaching search front?
I turned it down. They heard about some of the successes I had coaching junior high. No, there is a committee. The way I understand it, I don't know, other than what we all read. There is a committee that is helping start the process. That it is a Chad Weidberg decision that he is leading this whole process, which I'm in favor of. Chad's had terrific success in hiring coaches, and that they are exploring all the possibilities. They have that minimum criteria, which of course could obviously change. They want somebody with head coaching experience, want some with regional ties. That's why I'm saying that Morris guy checks a lot of box. But I'm sure they're also going to keep their eyes open. We hired David Taylor as a wrestling coach without any head coaching experience. Jim Knowles might be looking for a job at the end of the year from Penn State, and supposedly he wants to be a head coach, and so would he be worth the gamble? He's currently the defensive coordinator at Penn State, but I don't know anything other than what we're all reading online.
Well, it'll be interesting. Knowles, I think the only thing that would go against him, and as a guy who's 55, I never want to be ageist, but isn't Knowles like 66 years old?
Yeah, he's older than we are, so yeah. Probably.
But he's also been great wherever he's gone. And if he wants a shot, why not let him, be Sam Pittman for a few years?
Well, I mean, I think defensive people would want to come and play. I think that
Right.
our defense would almost immediately get better.
But
And
do you not think,
so,
though, that Oklahoma State really needs to have an a real offensive identity? That's always been their selling point, is that we're going to have a great offense.
yeah, no, absolutely. But both sides of the ball have got to be taken care of. If he comes in, again, just randomly spitting these things out here, if he comes in, then the defense is taken care of. So then you have the ability to go and hire a hotshot coordinator to develop that offensive identity. And Oklahoma State, you could use what Gundy had established with high-powered offense and some spread and quick to the line and get the ball out. You could go back on that, but again, where maybe that's where the Morris guy from North Texas, because he's an offensive guy. Look what he's done with the quarterbacks. Maybe you bring him in and the offense. Suddenly people are like, I want to play for this guy now that he's at a major institution as the head coach. So maybe that shores up the offense. I mean, there's a lot of possibilities. And in today's portal world and in today's NIL world, if the head coach makes a splash and his coordinators can make a little bit of a splash, you can get some dudes. You can get some dudes and be a bowl team next year.
Right. And it's a great point that you bring up. It doesn't take 3 years to have this turnaround. You should, with any new coach, it should look good first year. You should see the difference. We saw it with Bob Stoops. We saw it with Jim Tressel. Absolutely saw it with Kurt Signetti. First year. It's not that it's not rocket science. It is a big job, but if you come into your first year, I mentioned this last week, but David Bourne wanted to fire John Blake before he even coached a game because John Blake couldn't run a basic meeting. And Bourne's like, who did I hire here? At the advice of Barry Switzer, I should note, after a failed hire in Howard Schnellenberger. But you should
They're writing books about that guy.
Oh my God. Oh, yes. Yeah. So, but Oklahoma State, should absolutely have the expectation of being in a bowl game next year. That's not unreasonable. And then, and I would say Big 12 championship contender in 2 or 3. That should be the goal. That should always.
Arizona State did it in 1 year.
Right.
Maryland. Maryland is having terrific success, and they brought in as many new players and had a similar situation what Oklahoma State did this year. There's a lot of teams. Texas Tech, they've always been good, but they've never been elite level. And then you're looking at this team, and they might be. I mean, I think clearly they're the class of the Big 12 right now, and they could be that national dark horse to sneak up on people. So it is entirely possible, but it's also lightning in a bottle. Look how many other programs haven't done that.
So lightning in the bottle makes it sort of like characteristic of what we see in college basketball. How many times have you seen a Villanova, a North Carolina, win a title, and then the very next year they're not in the tournament? This happens. It's up and down based on who you have, as opposed to just every year the same old thing. And I think we would be fine, but that eye test really comes into play. So I hope that whoever Oklahoma State brings in, that they give the Cowboys a spark. And I think it starts with offense. You win with defense, but it's got to look better on offense. And that's the struggle that OU has. For next week, I think the Sooners do eke out a win against South Carolina. They're not as good as I thought they would have been at the beginning of the year. They're 3-3. Their backs are against the wall a little bit. They fired their offensive line coach. This is in Columbia, South Carolina, which is a tough place to play. But I don't think we're going to see what happened last year with South Carolina scoring 14 points in the first minute against the Sooners, and the game was over pretty much immediately. I would say this. I don't think it'll be I don't think we'll come away saying, ooh, OU's back. I think OU wins a 21-13 game, 21-16, something like that. Close, kind of a slugfest. It's an SEC game. It's a problem if OU loses the game next week. I mean, nobody's going to.
It is a problem.
It's a problem. I mean, it's the writing is on the wall if the Sooners lose next week. I'm not saying it's a must win, but it's kind of it's not that game is a must win, but we know the SEC. It portends bad things if they lose to South Carolina next week.
If they lose to South Carolina, do they move on from Venables?
I don't think you give Joe C any more decisions.
So you're locked in on that, even if they lose to South Carolina.
Absolutely. Look, Joe Castiglione has done so much for the University of Oklahoma on so many levels. But the minute you announce that you're retiring, you let the new guy or new gal, whoever they hire, you let them make that decision. So I think Venables is safe one way or the other. However, I think unless somebody's out there saying I have $36.3 million that I'm willing to spend to see him gone. I don't know what good that would do you this year, and it ruins the relationship. But if they lose to South Carolina, there's nothing that tells me that they won't also lose to Alabama, Missouri, LSU, and Mississippi.
That's fair. That's fair. And it's a murderer's row. That's a heck of a schedule.
It is. So you have to win the ones that you can win. Oklahoma State, Cincinnati, I think that'll be a tough game. But I'm just hoping that Oklahoma State keeps it close. What do you think about those two games? Who's winning?
I do think OU's going to win. I think they're a little bit their defense is good enough that they're going to win primarily with defense. I think like you, it's not going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Mateer will have another week to be back, be healthy, get some more of that under his feet. And I think the Sooners will, like you, they'll sneak out a 3, 4, 5, 6 point win, something like that. Oklahoma State, who knows? Honestly, I can't predict a win. And that hurts a lot to say and admit that. But just looking at everything, you can't predict a win. However, if there is a game that is winnable that's left on this schedule, it is this coming Saturday, because it'll be a night game, because it's homecoming, because Cincinnati will look at us and go, these guys are terrible. And we have hopefully that cavalier gunfighter mentality of we got nothing to lose, our backs are against the wall, let's just come out blazing. So if there is a shot, it's Saturday. Again, it's a 7:00 kick. So hopefully we have a decent crowd of shirtless dudes that are, shall we say, well prepared for a long evening.
Yes. Yeah. You can't drink all day if you don't start in the morning.
Well, that's true, and they do sell beer in the stadium, I think, until the fourth quarter or, something like that, so you can keep it going. But hopefully we have a good rowdy crowd to support the guys, and they come out and play with reckless abandon and make the magic happen. That's all you can hope as a Cowboy fan.
I see the Cowboys down 31-17 in the fourth quarter. They score a touchdown to make it 31-24. They get the ball back with 2 minutes left, and Sam, I almost want to say Sam Robinson. That was a guy we went to high school with. Sam Jackson the fifth. He gets the ball and they score with 39 seconds left. And Meacham says, "We're going for 2, going for the win right here. Go for 2." And they win it right there, 32-31. That would be awesome.
You know what? I would take that. I would sign up for that right now, despite the fact that it would give me a heart attack for those 3 or 4 hours. But I would 100% take that.
All right, real quick before we get out of here, baseball playoffs. We were down to the Final Four. Dodgers open up Monday night against Milwaukee and the Brewers, the fighting Vin Scully's versus the fighting Bob Ueckers, and you have the Battle of 1977, Toronto and Seattle, teams that came into the league in 1977. Who do you like, and in how many games?
Well, while I would love to see Seattle and Milwaukee, simply because neither one of them have won a World Series, and I think that would be kind of cool for a new team to win the World Series, I kind of see it the other way. I think that the Dodgers are too hot right now. I think their pitching has come back around, and I think that the Dodgers have played more games, so they have a little bit more of this playoff mojo going. So, even though Milwaukee will have the home field, I think that the Dodgers win that one. And then on the other side, I think Toronto takes it. I think Toronto, again, is just playing too well right now. And they have a lot of potential. They still are showing what they can do. So I think if it's going to be the Dodgers, probably Dodgers, I'll say in 7. No, I'm going to say Dodgers in 6, Toronto in 7.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers, there's no evidence that tells me, just again, eye test, no evidence that tells me that the Dodgers aren't going to repeat and be our first repeat champion since 1992 when Toronto won it. So it would be kind of appropriate for Toronto and Los Angeles to play in the World Series. And as much as I would love Seattle as a destiny team, I agree with you. Toronto's especially hot offensively. They got home field advantage. I like the Blue Jays in 6. I like the Dodgers in 5. I think the Dodgers are playing so well right now. I want Milwaukee to put up a fight, but we'll see. And Seattle may put up more of a fight. That Detroit-Seattle game, by the way, you'll love this. I was texting with Nicholson all throughout the game, the Detroit-Seattle game, through 15 innings. We got up to like 1 a.m. in the morning, something crazy. And he's on the East Coast. But baseball's that type of game, man. It's a talking sport. And it was such a great game.
Terrific game. Went way too long.
Yeah, it was very long. But I agree with you. Blue Jays, Dodgers, we are headed to that. I started to say Super Bowl. We are headed that World Series. All right.
Yeah, I hope we're wrong. I hope we're wrong.
Yeah, right. Same. Although I'll never root against the Dodgers. I just want to see Milwaukee do something for once. I would love to see the Brewers. Yeah. Okay. That's another edition of Bedlam Buds. If you guys love this, be sure that you like, subscribe, share this. If you appreciate the passion that I have, feel free to say that I'm crazy. Send all hate mail to me, and not to Jeremy. I'll take it. Send it to me at news@oklahomamemo.com. Go Cowboys, go Pokes, go Sooners. Let's come back and have 2 wins to talk about next week.
Let's get some wins.